are going to be talking about the three branches of government, and we're going to be using a SmartNotebook. And the essential questions that we're going to be asking are, how does the Constitution divide the government's power into three branches? So we're going to be talking about the three different branches. And what are the checks and balances and why were they created? And we're also going to be looking at the Bill of Rights and why they were added to the Constitution. All right, for our first task, we are going to be rearranging the preamble and unscrambling it. The preamble is the beginning of the Constitution, which lays out part of the reason or the reasons why we have the different branches of government and the separation of powers. So let's begin. So I think it starts, we are the people of the United States in order to form a more perfect union. That one's in the right spot. Promote the general welfare. Kind of drag them and drop them to where you want them to be. Let's see if we got it right. So you're going to click the check button. Oh no, we got a couple wrong. So since those are the two wrong, we're going to switch those and see if that makes it right. There you go. All right, so let's read through it. We are the people of the United States in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, so that can go into why we have a judicial system, ensure domestic tranquility, making sure everybody is happy, provide for the common defense, army, protection, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our prosperity. Do ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States of America. Good job. So in the next task. Now we're going to be actually talking about the three branches of government. The legislative branch, which makes up the Congress, and that's the House of Representatives and the Senate. The executive branch, which is the president, the vice president, and their cabinet. And the judicial branch, which is the judges and the Supreme Court. So what you're going to do is you're going to click on these little blue things down here. If you can't read the whole thing, you click on it and it will scroll and tell you what it is. So the first one is print and borrow money. Well, I know that the legislative branch and the Congress has a lot to do with our money and how we deal with that. So I'm going to drag that to the legislative branch. The next one is collect taxes. And again, that has to do with money, so I think that might go to the legislative branch. Let's go over here. Declare executive actions unconstitutional. So unconstitutional things have a lot to do with the judicial system and going to court to decide if things are unconstitutional. So I think that goes to the judicial system. Convene Congress. That means this branch gets to decide whenever Congress meets. Do you all think Congress can decide when Congress meets? No, I don't think so either. I think this might have to do with the executive branch. Pardon criminals. That means that whatever the judicial branch decides, this branch can actually give that person a write-off and the crime not count. And I think that might have to do with the executive branch. Necessary and proper clause. That, I believe, goes to the legislative branch. Settle cases between states. When it says cases, I feel like that is something to do with a court case. And so that is the judicial system. Raise and fund the army. Again, that has to do with money, so funding the army. Let's go ahead and put that with the legislative and see if we're right later. Make laws. Well, I know that the executive branch has a lot to do with laws, but the legislative branch are the ones who actually argue and actually create the bills and decide whether they should pass or not. Veto legislation. So if the legislative branch actually makes the laws, the executive branch can actually say no if a law is passed and the executive branch didn't like it. Declare war. I feel like the executive branch might be able to declare war, but if I remember, I think that the executive branch has to get the permission of the legislative branch. So we're going to put it in the legislative branch. Commander-in-Chief. This is the branch who actually leads the army. If I can remember correctly, I think that's the president. So we're going to put that in the executive branch since he's part of the executive branch. Nominate judges and ambassadors. Do you all think the judicial branch can actually nominate their own judges? I think that would be a little unfair. I actually think it might be the executive branch that does that. Declare laws unconstitutional. There's our word again, unconstitutional. So that must go to the judicial system. Override vetoes. So we said that the executive branch actually gets to veto legislation. The legislative branch can override that and say that if they don't like that the executive branch vetoed their bill, they can override that veto and put it into law. An appellate jurisdiction. That goes to the judicial branch. Now let's check our answers. Yeah, we got them all right. Good job. All right, now we're going to be looking at the powers of the executive branch. Go ahead and click Start. And we're going to be unscrambling the word. If we need a clue, we can click down here and click Clue. So the president can let someone off from their crime. And we talked about this just a second ago. What is that? You're right. It's pardon. Good job. Who he nominates as a check against the judiciary. So the judiciary has things called judges. Good job. All right. When a president does not like a bill. Well, this could be votes. But what is it when we said that he doesn't like a bill? What does he do? You're right, he vetoes it. Look, perfect. Who is considered the commander-in-chief? We said that's the person that leads the army. So who is that? Good job, it's the president. I think this is the last one. What group does he get the power to decide when they meet? So who do we say they get to convene who? Congress. Good job. Look, and we have our star, so that means we did well. All right, now we're going to be talking about the actual powers of the legislative branch. So remember, think about all the powers we just talked about when we did the chart and which one of those goes to the legislative branch. If it's a power of the executive branch or the judicial branch, we're going to drop it over here. So remember, you can click on it. Necessary and proper clause. Remember, we thought about that one, and I think we said that belongs to the legislative branch. So you drop it in there. If it disappears, you're right. Veto laws. We said that was part of the executive branch. Good job. Print money. I think I remember saying that the legislative branch has a lot to do with money, so let's see if that goes there. Perfect. Confirm judges. So we said the executive branch actually selects the judges, but they need to have the legislative branch's approval. That's a part of a check and balances. Raise taxes. Taxes has to do with money, So goes the legislative branch. Override a veto. We said that the executive branch can actually veto laws the legislative branch makes, but as another check, the legislative branch can actually override those vetoes. Nominate judges. So we said that the legislative branch has to approve those nominations, but the executive branch actually makes the nominations. Declare war. The executive branch is thought of a lot to be doing with declaring war, but it's actually the legislative branch that has to do it. Lead the army. I think that has to do with the commander-in-chief, which is the executive branch. Right on. Declare laws unconstitutional. There's our word, unconstitutional. Who does that belong to? Right, the judicial branch. Good job. Look, they're all gone. We got them all right. Now we're going to be looking at checks and balances. This arrow is going to point to powers that the legislative branch has that actually checks the powers of an executive branch. So move this out of the way. The legislative branch has the power to override vetoes that the executive branch makes, and they can impeach the president, which means kick him out of office. Whereas the executive branch has the power to veto laws that the legislative branch makes, and also has the power to tell when Congress meets. The legislative branch has the power to impeach and approve judges that the executive branch chooses. So that's a power to check the judicial branch. They have the power to kick judges out of the office if they do something unconstitutional or against the rules. Whereas the judicial branch has the power to declare laws unconstitutional that the legislative branch passes, such as the civil rights laws. The judicial branch has the power to declare actions of the executive branch unconstitutional. So anything that the executive branch might do unlawful, the judicial branch can declare those unconstitutional as a check. The executive branch has the power to appoint federal judges and grant pardons. That means that they get to choose who is actually sitting in the judicial branch, but they also have the power to give pardons to people on decisions that the judicial branch makes. Now we're going to be clicking on images to see some of the rights that are protected by the Bill of Rights. One is the right to a fair trial, no cruel or unusual punishment. Powers are given to the federal government are reserved to the states. So there's certain powers that federal government has, and there's certain powers that the state has. Freedom from unreasonable searches. That means that police officers have to get search warrants to be able to search people's houses. The right to bear arms. That means the right to be able to have a gun. The freedom of religion, which is a very popular one. The freedom of speech, which means we have the right to say anything we want to on the internet, in newspapers, on TV, so on and so forth. And the right to petition. That means that we have the right to petition against things that we don't think are right. Now we're going to be using the magnifying glass to see why our Constitution is such a success. So you drag the hourglass. So the separation of powers between the three branches. Like we talked about on the diagram, the branches have checks and balances, which means that not one branch is actually more powerful than the other. Everyone checks people. Okay, here's another one. We have the ability to change or amend the Constitution. Those are the Bill of Rights. We have the ability to decide if we want to create changes within the Constitution. So it's not totally set in stone. Here's another one. Federalism. The division of powers between the federal and state government. This means that the federal government isn't any more powerful than the state government in some cases. And here's our last one. The Bill of Rights, which lists our natural rights that the government must protect. And then we were just talking about those when we clicked on the picture. And what are our three branches of government again? Executive branch, which is the president, the vice president, and their cabinet. The legislative branch, which is Congress, and the judicial branch. Good job.